They say you can't buy taste, but apparently, you can buy a car loud enough to announce your insecurity before you even step out of it. The sound of that rev sliced through the calm hum of the cafe like a movie scene I didn't audition for. I didn't look up right away. I was too focused on stirring the cinnamon foam of my latte, watching it swirl like a tiny storm. My silk blouse clung softly to my skin. White, crisp, deliberate. Everything about me that morning was deliberate. Then the car door slammed, and a voice I hadn't heard in 6 years, not since the night he told me I'd never make it without him, drifted across the sidewalk.
No way.
I stood almost in disbelief. And there he was, Ethan Cross. Tailored suit. Watch that could fund a semester at NYU. Smile that once made my pulse stutter. And for a split second, I forgot to breathe. Then I remembered everything. He didn't see me at first, not until I stepped off the curb, latte in hand, that same calm, polished version of the girl he once dismissed. The lid popped. The coffee arced through the air, smooth, perfect, landing across the gleaming white leather interior of his new sports car. I gasped softly, eyes wide, lips curling just enough to be polite. "Oh, sorry," I said, voice steady. I might have dropped my latte after I refused. His head snapped up, eyes locking on mine, and the color drained from his face. The moment Ethan's eyes met mine, the years folded backward like an old letter I never meant to reopen. 6 years earlier, I was 21, fresh out of college, and starving for a future I couldn't yet name. Back then, I believed in things like timing, potential, and people who said they saw something in me. Ethan was one of those people, older, confident, already working at a marketing firm in Chicago. He knew exactly what to say, and I was young enough to believe words could mean permanence. I still remember the night everything cracked. We were at a networking event, his world, not mine. I wore the same red dress I'd saved 2 paychecks to buy, thinking it made me look like I belonged. It didn't. The other women there had polish, manicures, laughter that sounded expensive. I had ambition, and apparently, that was the wrong accessory. When I told Ethan I'd applied for a creative director internship in New York, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Sam, you can't handle that city," he said, with that quiet superiority men use when they think they're being protective. "You're sweet, but you're not cutthroat. It'll eat you alive." Something inside me cracked, not loud, but sharp. The same night, I overheard him joking with a colleague. "She's got dreams bigger than her paycheck." They laughed. I smiled through it, pretended I didn't hear, but my chest burned. Later that night, I found myself outside, hands shaking, breath fogging against the cold glass of his car window, the same car he wouldn't even let me drive. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my grandmother, just 3 lines. "Darling, don't let someone else narrate your story. If they can't see your worth, change the audience." I remember reading it again and again, the glow of the screen soft on my tear-streaked face. That was the night I walked away. I didn't shout, didn't beg. I just took off my heels, carried them in one hand, and kept walking until the city lights blurred into something that looked like freedom. It hurt. God, it did. But in that silence, I heard something louder than his laughter. My own voice. And that was the first night I realized I didn't need permission to begin. The first year after I left Ethan felt like walking through fog, every step forward uncertain, every breath a mix of fear and freedom. I moved to New York with 2 suitcases, an unpaid internship, and a savings account that could barely cover 2 months' rent. My apartment was the size of a generous closet, 1 window, 1 leaky faucet, and dreams that didn't fit the space. But I loved it. Every chipped tile and late-night siren reminded me I was here by choice. The internship was brutal. 12-hour days designing social media ads for companies that treated creativity like a disposable luxury. My boss, Miranda Kane, was the kind of woman who never raised her voice, but her silence could make you rewrite an entire campaign. I admired her from day one. She never flirted her way into power or apologized for having it. One night, after I stayed late to fix a presentation that wasn't even my responsibility, Miranda walked by my desk and paused. You remind me of someone, she said. Me, before I learned that the world listens to women who don't explain themselves. Then she slid her coffee mug toward me. Black. No sugar. Drink up. You'll need it. From that day on, she became more than a boss. She was a mirror I didn't know I needed. Months turned into years. I learned how to hold my ground in boardrooms full of men who used my ideas but forgot my name. I learned how to budget like a strategist and dream like a believer. Every failure was private. Every win quiet. My first freelance gig paid $400. My first client referral came through Miranda. My first real office, a co-working space with peeling paint and mismatched furniture, felt like a kingdom. I decorated it with sticky notes, dollar store plants, and a single framed quote from my grandmother's text. Changed the audience. Slowly, people started noticing my work. The small clients turned into mid-size ones. I learned branding, storytelling, leadership, and built my own agency, Studio Revved, a subtle nod to the name Reed, reborn. I didn't post pictures of luxury or make announcements online. My family thought I was still figuring things out. Ethan probably assumed I was invisible. But behind the curtain, I was building something that mattered. A business run by women who believed in each other. We didn't chase validation. We created value. By the 4th year, Studio Revved had clients across 3 states. The 5th year, we partnered with a national fashion label. By the 6th, I signed the lease for a penthouse office, floor-to-ceiling windows, espresso machine, quiet pride. And every morning, I started my day the same way, one hand on the window frame, the other holding a caramel latte. The same drink I held the night I walked away. Only now, I wasn't stirring heartbreak. I was stirring victory. Ethan Cross had always been the kind of man who filled a room just by walking into it. But that morning outside the cafe, standing beside his gleaming sports car with coffee dripping down its leather seats, he looked small. He blinked at me like I was a ghost from a chapter he'd rather forget. Samantha? His voice cracked, disbelief tripping through the syllables. You still in the city? I smiled, calm. Not just in it. Kind of own a few corners of it now. He laughed awkwardly, the way people do when they're unsure if they're being mocked. Guess life's been good to you, he said, wiping at the mess on his sleeve. Oh, you could say that. I set my half-empty cup on the curb. But you might want to, I gestured toward the interior of his car, where the caramel foam had streaked down the dashboard. Get that cleaned before it stains. He sighed, glancing at the damage, then at me. You always had a way of making an entrance. I learned from the best. I let the words hang there, sweet, but sharp. A pause. Then he said it, the inevitable question. So, what do you do now? That was my cue. I slipped on my sunglasses, motioned toward the sleek glass building across the street, a minimalist black sign gleaming above the entrance. Studio Revved. His eyes followed, then widened. No way, he whispered. That's you? I nodded, almost casually. We just rebranded a few months ago. You've probably seen our work. Your company's last campaign actually came through us. He blinked. Once. Twice. Wait. Our campaign? He looked genuinely disoriented. We've been trying to meet with your team for weeks. I've been the one sending those partnership proposals. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Oh, right. Ethan Cross Marketing Group. I said it slowly, tasting the irony. I remember. My assistant flagged it. Said the proposal lacked originality. He flushed, a quick, crimson bloom across his neck. Sam, come on. You can't tell me you're seriously. I'm seriously the one deciding whether or not to approve your firm for collaboration. I leaned closer, just enough for him to smell the faint trace of my vanilla perfume. Life's funny, isn't it? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Inside, the silence was louder than any apology. A few minutes later, I offered him a napkin for the car seat. Here, I said, for the mess. He took it slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. You always were different, he said, almost wistful. Guess I didn't see it back then. No, I said softly. You saw it. You just didn't like what it made you feel. He winced, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him, almost. Look, he said after a beat. Maybe we could start over? Talk about a deal? Catch up. I smiled, calm, unhurried, untouchable.
Sure, I said.
Schedule it through my assistant. But just a heads up, we charge consultation fees now. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I turned to leave, heels clicking against the pavement, each step a punctuation mark on the silence behind me. At the glass doors of Studio Revved, I paused. Looked back once, at the man still standing by his coffee-stained car, watching the woman he underestimated walk into the company she built from nothing. Then I gave him the same polite smile I wore the night I walked away 6 years ago. Ethan, I called out lightly. Oh, and don't worry, it's just coffee. It washes out. Ego stains are harder. And with that, I stepped inside. The elevator doors slid shut, reflecting my own calm face back at me, the woman who no longer needed revenge to feel powerful. 2 days later, Ethan Cross sat across from me, this time in my office. No roaring engine. No tinted sunglasses. Just him, fidgeting with the cuff of his expensive shirt while pretending not to be nervous. My office overlooked the Hudson. The morning light filtered through sheer blinds, brushing gold across the minimalist space, soft gray furniture, framed art, a few orchids.
Calm.
Controlled. Everything I wasn't back when he knew me. He cleared his throat. Thank you for meeting me, Samantha. I appreciate your time.
Time.
The one thing I gave freely once, now it came with an invoice. I nodded. Of course. I always make time for potential partners. He smiled thinly.
Right.
About that, look, I know our proposal wasn't perfect. I was hoping maybe we could find some middle ground. Middle ground? I repeated, leaning back slightly. You mean the kind where I shrink myself so you feel taller? His jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. I tilted my head. I know, but it's what you did. Silence stretched between us. Outside, traffic hummed, the city moving on indifferent. I let him sit in that discomfort for a beat before softening my tone. Ethan, I didn't bring you here to embarrass you. I brought you here because there's a chance to do better. For both of us. He looked up, confused. Better? I folded my hands. Studio Revved doesn't work with people who undervalue others. So, if you want this partnership, it comes with conditions. His eyebrows rose. Conditions? 3, I said calmly. First, your firm will offer equal pay across genders. No exceptions. Second, any campaign involving women's brands will have female creatives at the table, not just in the credits. And third, I paused, letting the weight of it land. Third, you'll stop treating ambition as arrogance, especially when it comes from someone who doesn't need your approval. He blinked. You're serious? Dead serious. A long pause. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. You have my word. For the first time, it didn't sound like a line. It sounded like surrender, the good kind. The kind that comes from realizing growth doesn't happen in comfort. Good, I said, standing. Then we'll revisit the partnership next quarter. He rose too, unsure whether to thank me or apologize. He ended up doing both. As he turned to leave, I added gently, Ethan? He stopped, hand on the door. I don't hate you, I said. You were part of the lesson, just not the ending. He exhaled, nodding once. You've changed. No, I said softly. I just stopped asking for space in rooms I was born to own. He smiled faintly, almost proud, then left. When the door closed, I turned toward the window again. The skyline shimmered, and in the reflection, I saw not the woman who left barefoot and broken years ago, but the one who built her life brick by brick, no validation required. And for the first time in years, I didn't just feel powerful. I felt peaceful. The night after Ethan's visit, I stayed late in the office, everyone else gone, the city outside glowing like a field of golden stars. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. I walked to the small shelf behind my desk and pulled out a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside was a folded piece of paper, the text from my grandmother, written in her looping handwriting before she passed. Darling, don't let someone else narrate your story. If they can't see your worth, change the audience. I traced the faded ink with my thumb, smiling. Back then, those words were comfort. Now they were truth. I framed that note the next morning and hung it near the window, where the sunlight hit it first thing every day. It wasn't just a reminder of her.
It was a reminder of me.
In the weeks that followed, I heard whispers that Ethan's firm had started implementing the changes I'd outlined, hiring more women, opening mentorship programs, crediting designers properly. Maybe he meant it after all. Maybe people can change once they're humbled enough to listen. And as for me, I stopped hiding. I started giving talks about entrepreneurship, sharing the quiet parts of my journey, the fear, the loneliness, the tears I never posted. Because women like me don't need to prove how strong we are. We just need to be seen as human while doing it. One Friday morning, I walked past that same cafe where it all began. The barista still knew my order: caramel latte, extra foam, light cinnamon. I sat by the window, the same seat where I'd stood 6 years ago, and let the steam curl up toward my face. The city hummed outside, louder now, but somehow softer in my chest. I wasn't thinking about Ethan anymore. Or revenge. Or validation. I was thinking about the girl who once believed she wasn't enough, and the woman who proved her wrong. As I gathered my things to leave, the barista smiled. "Rough day?" she asked playfully, nodding toward my coffee. I grinned. "Not anymore." Outside, a red sports car zipped past, different model, same arrogance. I laughed under my breath, shaking my head. Then I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. "Oh, sorry. I might have dropped my latte on the interior of your new sports car after I refused." Only this time, it wasn't about spilled coffee. It was about never spilling yourself just to fit someone else's cup. And that was the kind of stain I'd never want to wash away.